Seconded. And Terry Short has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would stand, please. And our past mayor, Duvall. Now our economic development director, Representative Greer, Representative Shamor, Councilman Short, Councilman Palmer, Councilman Thompson, Magistrate Roy Easter, and Senator Dennis Barrett. Did I miss anyone? I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We have some new faces. Terry Short did a great job of advertising our meeting to the Small Business Administration. Thank you to Marion Mackler for doing all of our calling. I want to thank Brenda and Nancy for the food. Anyone that's not really aware of Women's Network, we're kind of different from other organizations. We're a chapter, we're not a club, and we're pretty loosely constructed. We have co-chairs and some folks that volunteer for calling. We're not a real club. We don't have a business meeting. We don't do fundraising. We're more about education and trying to get people to understand what's going on politically, locally, and within the county, the state, and nationally. Our meetings are dedicated to our speakers and the subject matter for the night. So I'm going to introduce our speaker here in a minute, and they will be giving their presentation, and then after that, we'll open it up for questions from the audience. And usually our meetings are pretty informal, where we have good dialogue back and forth between speakers and audience. So if you have questions, please feel free when they're finished to ask questions. That's what we encourage. Our first speaker tonight is our mayor, Mike Weaver. I'm sure you all know him, but a brief bio. Mike is a Kentucky native from a small farming community called Livia, about 15 miles south of Owensboro. He joined the Navy in 1956 and served as an electronic technician on a destroyer escort until 1959. He attended Brescia College in Owensboro, is that right, Mike? Right. In 1959 and 60, he's married to Lois Marie Morris Weaver from West Louisville, Kentucky, also near Owensboro since 1961. They have 4 daughters, 3 graduates from UK and 1 from Vanderbilt. He joined the U.S. Army in 1961, promoted to Staff Sergeant in 1964, commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1965. He commanded a combat platoon in Vietnam in 1966 and 67. With the 1st of the 9th Cav and the 1st Cavalry Division, he commanded a cavalry troop in Vietnam in 1969 and 70 with the 173rd Airborne Brigade. He attended Kentucky Wesleyan College in 1972 on an Army scholarship with a BA in History. Attended the University of Missouri 74 to 76 on an Army scholarship with a Master's in History, and served as an exchange officer to the Royal Armor Corps Center in Bovington, England, 76 to 78. He commanded an armor battalion in Korea 1984 to 86, retired as an Army colonel in April of 1992. and started the Weaver Bodie construction in May of 1992, building custom homes for 20 years. He was elected to the Kentucky House of Representatives in 1996 and served for 10 years, and he was elected to be mayor of Radcliff in 2014. I would like to welcome our mayor, Mike Weaver.
I drove up a while ago. Noticed it was 90 degrees. The thought occurred to me that we should all be out by the pool, sipping a beverage of choice. We're here instead. This weekend, three of our daughters were home, and Cindy, who lives in Bowling Green, told me that their women's network down there has over 150 people, and she's a big part of that. So perhaps this one will grow to that at some time. You know, I've been the mayor now for 5.5 months. And people have asked me ever since I became the mayor, how do you like that job? And I've had to say it's interesting, it's challenging, it's demanding, and someday it might be fun. But I would tell you now that within the last month, it has become fun, and I'm enjoying it very much. I guess it's because after 5.5 months, I realized that the health and the welfare and the safety of the city of Radcliff is the responsibility of the mayor, the responsibility of 6 city council, the responsibility of 5 department directors, it's the responsibility of 6 boards and commissions. And in all those people, you find levels of expertise that are valuable to the city. Just thinking about the city council, the people who serve there. One city councilman that managed the baseball league and has an interest in all of those policy issues that deal with that, and has become a valuable source of information. We also have someone who is very experienced in real estate and leases, and has become a valuable part of that project as we move forward. We have 2 city councilmen who have a background in education. And we have 1 city councilman, or city councilwoman in this case, who has been evaluating the city for over 13 years, and it appears she's going to continue doing that. And then we have another city council person who is a minister. You put all of these together, and what you realize as a mayor over time is you've got to take from every one of these people in order to make sure the health and welfare and safety of the city comes together in a cohesive way. And then there's the department heads who have knowledge and expertise in their particular fields. And then you have the boards and commissions, and when I started looking at the boards and commissions and noticed that some of the people on the boards and commissions should have been reappointed 4 years ago, and started looking at that and looking at what they should be doing, I realized that that is another important extension of what the city does. So if you put it all together, running this city is a very elaborate collective effort. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is a little bit about economic development, actually a whole lot about economic development. I'm going to talk a little bit about tourism and a little bit about Fort Knox. I would say that economic development in the city of Radcliff, or the lack thereof, dates back to 1998, when the city received a $2 million grant from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We got half of that in the first year and half in the second year. And with that money, they bought Mill Pond, which is off of Highway 313 and now pretty close to the crossroads of Patriot Parkway. And at the time it was purchased, it was about a 160-acre farm. And during the period of time that it's been in existence, only 2 businesses have located there, and both of them have gone into bankruptcy. But we still have 143 acres, and it's developed pretty well. It just needs a little bit more attention. Now, during the 15-year history of Mill Pond, ownership initially belonged to the city of Radcliff. When they formed the North Hardin Economic Development Authority, or the predecessor of that, all of that land, all of the assets, all the liability was transferred over to the North Hardin Economic Development Authority. And the problem I see with that is neither the executive director or anyone on the board answered directly to the city. In fact, if you look at the organization and who answers to whom, once you get to the executive director, that's it. There's no other person that you have to be accountable to. Now, in 2011, after Mayor Duvall won his election, he appointed me to the authority. And I asked a few questions about what this was all about, and within 4 months, the chair and the vice chair and the executive director resigned. And when I looked at where we stood financially, we were close to $200,000 in debt, and there was a plan in place for the budget of 2011, 2012 to borrow $150,000 against the land. It brought the debt to $350,000 in order to have the operating funds that they would need for another year. After the executive director resigned, we did not do that. We looked at the finances and said the first thing we have to do is straighten this out, and then we have to look at the line of responsibility and see if it's in the right place. So we sold off all the timber off of that land. And if you're an old farm boy like I am, you know that timber gets to a certain state of maturity. And if you don't sell it, it's not going to be worth anything. So we sold all of that. Then we leased the cropland, and we cut that debt down to $66,000. Now, during the 3.5 years that I was the chair, Mayor Duvall and I, ex-mayor now, someone took his place, we worked very closely together on economic development. And the current gateway development has its genesis back in the development we were trying to bring initially to Red Mar Plaza. And it didn't go to Red Mar Plaza. First of all, back then it would have been a good fit, except $6 million for Red Mar Plaza was too much money, and no one was going to pay it. It might be worth $1 million now. It may have been worth $3 million back then, but inflating that price prevented a development from going there. Now, when I ran for the office of mayor, one of my goals was to establish the position of economic development director. And with city council approval, I looked over several applications, and I thought that J.J. Duvall was the most qualified, and then I added to that the fact that he had already had his hands in gateway development, and that we would have a continuation of continuity if I put him in that position. And after negotiating a little bit with the city council, we decided to do that. Enough of them agreed with me that J.J. Duvall was appointed the economic development director. And I don't think any of us are now disappointed with the choice that we made. In fact, if I evaluate him, I say that he has exceeded all expectations. It's nice to have an audience that realizes you need to pause a little bit and collect your thoughts, so they clap and give you an opportunity to do that. Thank you very much. The progress that's been made on gateway developments is pretty evident right now. And if you go by there, you'll see they're moving dirt. And on Thursday at 11 a.m., we intend to have the official groundbreaking, where we take shovels and stick them into a dirt pile and act like we're lifting the first shovels of dirt. But that's particularly ceremonial. Colton's Steakhouse has agreed to give a free appetizer to anyone that comes to the groundbreaking. All you have to do is go over and tell them that's where you were, and they'll give you a free appetizer. Now, the first project is a neighborhood grocery store. And I and J.J. Duvall have both listened to some criticism by some people who say that Walmart neighborhood grocery, we don't need another Walmart. Well, Walmart is one of the five top grocery chains and is moving along very well. In fact, they just added to the things that they offer an internet ordering. And you will be able to order groceries over the internet at this store, and then they're going to add it to the other stores. But ours is the first, where you order your groceries and you go to a particular place and park your car, and they bring the groceries out to you. That is not a new concept. When my uncle owned an IGA store in Owensboro, you could call it in. Didn't have very many people back then that knew how to use the internet. So they called it in, and he put these packages together in boxes, and people either came in and picked them up, or you took them out to their car, or in some cases they were delivered. So they're bringing back an old concept. Now, the other things that we are trying to attract there is a medical plaza, another motel, and there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to see construction on another motel real soon, because the ones we have here at 96% occupancy right now. And in order to get the guy who's coming down for the groundbreaking from Walmart, and to get him a place to stay closer to here, we had to call Nicole Watson, who's on the Tourism Commission from the Hotel Association, and she found one room in order to put him. So that is going very well, and I think you're going to see another one start there very soon. I think we'll also be able to attract at least 2 more restaurants, eat-in restaurants, and a movie theater. If we can attract that movie theater and get the kind that J.J. Duvall and I want, we envision a movie theater where you can buy a little bit more expensive ticket, and when you buy the ticket, they give you a seat number, and you go to a chair that is much more comfortable than anything you'll find in this area. Now, one of the things I think that is vitally important to the city of Radcliff or any other city that is trying to attract business is quality of life. And part of quality of life is convenience of shopping, entertainment, things to see and do. And an important part of a business coming here is road access. And along with road access is traffic count. We are very fortunate in that our legislature has chosen to continue the extension of 313 closer and closer to Brandenburg, with a plan to eventually take it all the way. When's that going to happen, Jeff?
It's in the process now. It's, all the right-of-way is purchased, and they're moving dirt every day.
Well, because of that, you now have people who live closer to Brandenburg, for convenience, will come to Gateway Crossing. And you have people, because of convenience, will come from the Colesburg and Lebanon Junction area, the Gateway Crossing, and the southern part of Radcliff, the Gateway Crossing, and the northern part of E-Town on 31W, and some of the people who live on Patriot Parkway. They will come because it is convenient. To give you an idea of the quality of life, Lois sent me out the other day to get something. I said, "No, we don't need that. We can eat dinner without it." She refused. I had to go out and get what she wanted, and you could only get what she wanted at one of the name brand grocery stores. So when I drive down 313 going west, when I get at that intersection of 31W, I have two choices. I can turn right and go to the Walmart to that grocery store, or I can turn left and go to Kroger's. That's my only choices. This is going to solve that. It's going to be convenience. It's going to be quality of life for me, and it's going to be quality of life for a lot of people that live in that area. And I think for the first time in a long time, we're going to draw some people from the northern part of E-Town that will come in to see what we have here. And I think after we get that grocery store here, that is going to increase the traffic count. And I think that increased traffic count will help attract the other things that we want to put at Gateway Crossing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Boundary Oak Distillery and how that craft distillery is going to make such a huge difference to Radcliff. The Bourbon Trail proper, according to the Association of Distillers, had 720,000 visitors last year. They expect, since Boundary Oak will be so close to one of the most prominent on the Bourbon Trail, which is Jim Beam, and Jim Beam has no hotels or restaurants close to it, that they will actually send people, because this is a tight group of people in the bourbon industry. Of course, you have to be tight if you drink bourbon all the time. And they will send more and more people our way, and perhaps in the first year we'll get 20,000, 30,000. And they each spend $10 in just buying little gifts and things, and they buy their bourbon. All of that is going to mushroom every year. And so that is going to be a tourist attraction. And then I say we market what we have for tourism here in Hardin County. And we market the Pat Museum, the World War II barracks, the Bullion Depository, which is the scene of a movie that a lot of people in this room remember, Goldfinger, James Bond movie. And we also have a veteran cemetery that is also a tourist attraction because of the number of people that are now there. The families keep coming to visit. And then there's a 9/11 memorial that's there. We have Saunders Springs that is a nature preserve that if we market it, a lot of people would like to see that. And if you think about Boundary Oak Distillery, it is connected to Saunders Springs because that karst area of soft limestone that goes from Saunders Springs all the way to Colesburg is a ridge that was very, very popular during Prohibition, and Big Six Henderson made more arrests there than any place in Redmond because of all the moonshine stills. And the reason the moonshine stills were there is because of that soft limestone karst area. And by that I mean this limestone is not used for concrete. It filters water, hydraulic pressure, probably the Ohio River, and bubbles up springs all along that ridge. And then Boundary Oak has that unique one that comes out from under the roots of the big Boundary Oak tree. We put all that together, and you also market part of E-Town, their sports park. And we're benefiting from that right now. That's what's keeping our hotels open. And the Veterans Tribute and the History Museum. All of the things that they have, you package all that together, and they come to Hardin County to see what we have, and it becomes a point of destination. And that, I say, is also a part of the quality of life. Now, the next challenge that we have is to promote and market and advertise Mill Pond. Now, it would be nice if we had the money to pay for an economic development plan, but that would cost $120,000 to $150,000. And I don't see that in our budget. Who left their cell phone on? Would you turn it off? We need that desperately. But we don't have the people to do that internally. We just don't have the people. Fortunately, it looks like the Lincoln Trail Ad District and the Chamber of Commerce is going to get a grant to do exactly this for Hardin County. And I've talked to both the director of Lincoln Trail Ad and the Chamber. And when they get that money, they're going to put enough of that into Radcliff to do this. We're counting on that because I think that's the only way that we can afford it. The other thing that I think we need to do, and this is in the fiscal year budget right now, is to spend $150,000 to develop a site-ready industrial site. You have, I think, JJ, it's 250 industrial sites in Kentucky, and 6 of them are build-ready sites now. And we are not going to be naive about this and say we will be the 7th and only. I would imagine that we will be the 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th along with 40 others. But the advantage of doing a build-ready site is that all the utilities are there and they're ready for concrete to be poured. And the Economic Development Cabinet at the state, when they go out and recruit all over the world and bring something back here, if they have something they think would fit on a small industrial site like ours, they would send it here. And they would send it here before they would send it to the other 210 or whatever that number turns out to be, industrial sites in the rest of Kentucky. They would come here and the other ones first. Now, both of us, JJ and I both, have ideas about economic development. And so do all 6 members of the city council. We just have to be working together with the funding that we have now to make our ideas work and someday put them into a plan that's comprehensive, that has all the statistical data in it that you need to make good, logical choices. Now, another thing I want to talk about is tourism and the need for some legislative action. If you read in the paper about 3 weeks ago the article about Elizabethtown's budget, and that they were going to take, I think, 300,000. They're 300,000 less than they were last year. And you read part of an article that they wrote, a little part of the paragraph that said, and the Tourism Commission was funded by the E-Town City Council and Mayor. They appeared before their budget committee to see how much money they needed for operations. Ours does not work that way. Our Convention and Tourism Commission is totally independent of the city of Radcliff. In my opinion, it is time for a change to that. If you look at the 2 Kentucky revised statutes that authorize that, it's 91A 390 and 91A 350. I think they leaned real heavily on 350 and ignored 390. When they first wrote the ordinance, which was approved by the city council and signed by the mayor, whose name at that time was Hutchinson, on the 21st of March, 1988. I believe after 33 years, it's time for us to take a close look at this, to look at the Kentucky revised statutes that authorize this, and to make some revisions to it. We're just like the Economic Development Party that reported to absolutely no one, accounted to no one, that we change that, where we work in conjunction with the Tourism Commission to bring this under more control. The reason I think that is very, very important is because if you look at Elizabethtown today, they took advantage of their fourth-class city status, even though they were larger than us and a fourth-class city and a second-class city. They took advantage of that, and not only do they have a hotel tax, or a room tax, they have a restaurant tax, and they have a liquor tax. Working with the legislature and working with Jeff Greer specifically, and having J.D. Cheney down here to guide us through this process, Jeff is going to sponsor a piece of legislation because the classifications of city 1, 2, 3, and 4 no longer exist. We are all called what's home rule cities now. So under the home rule city legislation, I'm hoping that we can pass legislation that gives us the opportunity to vote in the city council first, whether we want to put it on the ballot or not, and then the citizens to vote whether they want to impose a liquor tax and a restaurant tax. And if we impose a restaurant tax, instead of the Tourism Commission having access to $250,000 a year, they probably have access to $500,000 a year. And before we let that happen, I think we have to decide exactly what the law reads and how we can revise that between now and then. And then the liquor tax, if we impose that, it all goes to law enforcement, because a law that was passed after Prohibition that basically says that since Prohibition is over, you're going to need more of a police force to police your community because of the flow of alcohol. And of course, we're new to the flow of alcohol. But I think that you have to work with your legislature. You have to work with them in order to get things done that benefit the city. And I'll give you another example of that we found out when we went to the 20-plus city conference. At the 20-plus city conference, Steve Riggs, who is the chair of the local government committee in the House, told us about the rule of fifths. He said the rule of fifths about 10 times, and I finally said, Representative Riggs, what are you saying? And he said, it is the formula of fifths. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5. And it's unfair. And when he explained it, I say it's unfair also. It's unfair because I believe he quoted 250 cities share 1/5 of the road tax. That comes to our cities. County government gets 2/5 of the road tax. That comes to 120 counties. And when you figure all of that out and see how much money a county gets for roads, it is 112% of their needs. What we get in the city of Radcliff doesn't come close to keeping up with what we need to be doing. So that's another piece of legislation that we need to work on. And I think it is incumbent on the mayor and the city council to be very familiar with the Kentucky League of Cities and what they can do for you, and use them to your advantage, not necessary advantage, just have them help you do what needs to be done. And use your senator, and use your representatives, and they will help you get these things done. And another thing that I realized from having been in the legislature, that very few of the legislatures have ideas of their own. Occasionally they do, but it's usually a citizen out there that brings them something and says, I see a problem with this, what can you do about it? And most of the legislation comes that way. It comes from the citizens out here. So we need to have a close relation with you, and we need you to help us get the funding that we need for our cities and change the Kentucky Revised Statutes that help us. And that, folks, is about all I have to talk about tonight. I thank you for your attention, and I will tell you that I am here as the mayor because I am a native from Kentucky, and my home is Radcliff. and I will put my heart and soul into this job for the next 3.5 years. Thank you.
Before JJ starts giving his presentation, he requests that we have a 5-minute break. First of all, before we do that, we had a couple people come in late, Councilman Holmes and Councilman Yates. Ms. Yates, did I miss anyone else? Okay, if you want to take a 5-minute break, I don't know, is there still food on the table?
There was till I got over here and started. No, there's still plenty.
Anything left, help yourself. Feel free to mill around. And then we'll start back in about 5 minutes.